What's up everybody, it's 2Bricks here, back in with a new installment of my Micro Fleet series for Micro Fleet February, a thing that I just made up. Today we're going to be taking a look at a whole bunch of new ships, some of which are recolors and kind of redos or refits of existing ships, which I have some kind of back here, some of which are just tweaks to existing ships, and a bunch of which are brand new to the fleet, that are taken from all kinds of different corners of the Star Wars galaxy, some very popular, some very deep cut, and I'm very excited to bring all of these to you guys because again, it just helps the fleet to keep expanding in all directions and just keep the love of Star Wars, all types of Star Wars content on the rise. So I'm very, very happy to be able to add these to the collection, and I'm so excited to talk about them with you today. So we're going to be going over everything in detail as per usual. Do make sure you check out all the other episodes of the Micro Fleet series. There are so many at this point, and I've gone through so many different iterations of certain ships, and I've gone through so many different phases of introducing things at different scales and different crazy stuff. So it's really quite a history at this point. I think I have something like 170 unique ships at this point, so do make sure you go back and give that a look, because man, it's been quite a history. So yeah, I'm gonna dive in and give you a look at all these ships today, so let's just get in there and take a look. Alright, so first things first, I'll give you a look at my refitted, recolored Bad Batch shuttle. I think this is like version 4 of the Bad Batch shuttle at this point. I've done so many. But this ship, in honor of season 2 now airing, I just was getting less and less satisfied with the light gray color scheme that I previously had on here, and I was looking at my large scale playset scale Marauder that I had done, and of course check out the individual video that I have for that as well. And yeah, I was just kind of feeling like, let's really try to match the color scheme as best as possible to that. And so I added in some dark, or obviously the predominant color scheme now is dark bluish gray, and I also added in some sand blue accents here and there in appropriate spots to try to bring this more in line with my larger model. So very, very happy with that. I still think that this Wolverine claw piece works so beautifully for this. I just can't believe that I never thought of it before, even so far as to have the little lions back here behind the cockpit area. Man, that is just perfect. So there you go. Bad Batch shuttle has been recolored, and I'm very happy with it. So hopefully this will be the final version, at least for a long time, unless any kind of major modifications get made to the ship throughout the course of the show. So there is the Havoc Marauder version 3 or 4 or something. And the next ship to get the refit detail treatment here is the Fondor from Andor. I was revisiting my again playset scale model, or revisiting, looking at it and comparing it to my tiny scale one, and just thinking that I could actually squeeze a little bit more authenticity and detail out of it. So I've added some this engine block kind of detail up here at the front with that black exposed area that sticks out. I added in this sloped piece to kind of show that little cutout channel that exists in front of the cockpit. I refitted the way that this central section moves up towards the back. Now it's hinging instead of being a series of steps up, so I think that works really well. I reinforced the wings because I was tired of those falling off, and then I've also added, of course, the all-important lightsaber emitters from the side here, using actual lightsaber parts, of course, from regular minifigures. They work perfectly at this scale. Nothing has really changed on the underside here, and the wings still fold in and then fold up as you would expect. I did switch out the central turret here for a minifigure hand because I just thought that it scaled a lot better, and so all in all, just a much more playable, much more accurate, much more fun representation of the ship, with the lightsaber laser beams coming out, which is really fun. So there you go. There is the version 2.0 of the Fondor. Very, very excited about that one. One of my favorite Star Wars ships in recent memory, so yay, happy to have that one kind of up to speed with the rest of the fleet for now, at least. You know how I always like to tinker, I can't help myself, but yeah, for now I'm calling this one done. And then before we move on to the new ships, I have these 2 recolors of existing designs. So I have Blue Leader's X-Wing. This is from Rogue One. This is flown by Antok Merrick at the Battle of Scarif, and it's a very iconic X-Wing, probably the most iconic one outside of Red 5, I think, of the T65 variety anyway. And really, really happy to be able to represent this one. And obviously the only difference here is that it has the blue markings. I have actually gone and switched out the original X-Wing T-65 Luke Skywalker's version to have the dark gray cannons. This one has the light gray in comparison because it feels like this is a newer, more polished up ship. Hasn't seen as much action and as much damage as by the time Luke gets his hands on the X-Wing that the Rebellion supplies to him. So I thought that the dark gray would help to show some aging there, and that would be fun. So that's that one. And then this is the Resistance A-Wing, flown by Tali Lintra during the opening sequence of The Last Jedi. Tragically, a very short-lived appearance on screen, because after a successful attack, Kylo Ren then leads the counterattack on the Raddus and destroys all of the ships in the hangar bay, including this one and Captain Tali Lintra along with it. Very sad stuff, but I think a cool, I don't have any representation of A-Wings in the sequel era, so I wanted to get this one in here. I want to do another one, which is the green and white color scheme that we got an actual official Lego set of, but for now, this is the blue one. It's my favorite of the sequel era A-Wings, so I wanted to do that one first. So there you go, two new ships technically, but really just pre-existing designs recolored. Next up we have Mando's N1 modified starfighter from the Mandalorian season, season 3 and Book of Boba Fett. This is Mando's new ride. It's obviously a kind of scrap heap retrofitted N1, and it's got the I went ahead and used the kind of darker messed up pieces here with the sun damage to represent the engines on this one, because his one is, like I said, pulled out of the scrap heap. I've added the addition of the little sprue piece here, which would normally contain 4 shuriken for like a Ninjago set. I've added that piece in there to represent the modified cannon details and the kind of engine exposed details that are at the front of the ship. And in the back here, instead of another unicorn horn piece, I've gone with the 2L bar because it has a little bit of extra detail. It's got this little notch on it here, which kind of helps to represent the messy look of the back section of the tail of Mando's N1, because it's all kind of exposed and has a bunch of frame and things kind of poking through it. So really happy to have this one in here. I actually added, on the standard N1, I have regular studs in here that are not colored blue, but in this one the blue just felt so much more prominent that I wanted to add it here instead of matching the engine color. And I think that works really well. And you kind of, you don't get a view of the little Grogu bubble there because it's too small to represent at this scale, but you guys know what it is. You guys know what you're looking at. And I think it works really well. So yeah, hopefully you guys get a kick out of this one. I really like it. I think that it's a good swooshing companion to go along with my yellow one. So yeah, there's Mando's modified N1 starfighter. Alright, and this is another new Andor ship, so only the second that I've done so far. This is the mobile tech pod, which was used obviously in the opening episodes of the show to transport the corpos to do their kind of ambush on Ferrix situation. This is obviously one that we got the official Lego set of, and it's a very fun little, very squat little drop ship. And it's got these obviously little folding wings here, so you can set those to the correct angle. So you have the landing pose there, which may in some ways be more iconic than the actual flight pose, because I think we see it landed more often than not. I just added in these yellow cheese slopes back here to indicate that there is yellow detailing on this section. I don't know if I prefer that or if I prefer gray and then maybe adding some custom yellow sticker detailing in here, because they're just it's basically like 2 yellow stripes that run down the back here, but I kind of prefer the custom purist approach here of just using the yellow cheese wedge pieces. I'm using ingots all around to capture the kind of unique, weird, boxy shape of the fuselage of this thing. And then underneath here I have a minifigure hand to represent the single cannon that it has. And I believe these are actually cannons up top as well, combined with engine detail. But in any event, the main kind of prominent cannon that we see deployed is the underside turret there. So yeah, this one's fun. This little kind of gap underneath the underneath the surface of the ingot is meant to represent the windscreen piece, and for a little bit of extra added visual detail and accuracy, you can just go ahead and place this on here at an angle so that it slopes down ever so slightly. That makes it a little bit more screen accurate, I think. But I'm trying to avoid relying on that technique too much because, yeah, there are a lot of subtle angles in these ships, and it's really, I mean, impossible to capture everything at this scale. But yeah, it does. I think that does look better. So I'll go ahead and leave it as is with the little angle in there, and that looks pretty cool. So yeah, there is the mobile tac pod ready to go down and cause some trouble and really basically kick off the rebellion with some corpo action. So good job, guys. Good job being absolute idiots at your jobs. So there you go, mobile tac pod, Andor ship number 2. Very excited. And going all the way back to the beginning of the saga, we have Luke Skywalker's land speeder. That is something I've been wanting to try to figure out a way to represent for the longest time. And finally, I got my hands on one of these pieces right here, which is the new 1x1 half round on one side tile piece in tan, which is just like the perfect piece to represent the land speeder. Then I'm using a bracket piece in here for the kind of red accent color. Sorry, I'm trying to just line this up. It's driving me crazy. Go in there straight. Oh my god. Go in there straight. Okay. So yeah, I'm using the red bracket piece here for the accurate kind of detailing in there for the secondary coloring. It is unfortunate that you can see the red poking through underneath the rounded part right here, which is supposed to be, you know, just desert under there. It's not supposed to have the red showing through. But the overall shape, I think, is very pleasing. And then again, using this buried roller skate piece in here to represent the 2 side engines and the 1 top engine is really just the only way that I can think of to possibly represent this tiny ship at this scale. It's really tricky, interesting one to try to crack because it is so tiny in universe, and to my scale, this is pretty accurate. It's about a stud and a half long and about 1 stud wide, so pretty much perfect, although obviously the front section there could do with being more narrow to be in line with the actual ship, but I think this works about as well as a human being could reasonably expect for this scale. So I'm very happy with this. Teeny tiny Luke's land speeder. I know that the ongoing joke in the LEGO community is we don't need any more Luke's land speeders, but here you go, there's just 1 more for the collection. So yeah, I think this is so cute and so fun, and I'm very happy to have it as part of the fleet. And visiting the Clone Wars era, here we have the TX-130 saber tank, another set that we got fairly recently from LEGO, which I was very happy to get my hands on, and a really fun challenge to try to represent at this tiny scale. So we have the little kind of side pods here represented very simply with just a handful of pieces, the lime green accent represented there with these 1x1 plates, and then figuring out how to do this little very narrow front windscreen slit here was really challenging as well, but I ended up just doing it fairly simply by using a headlight brick piece here reversed with a plate in the back, and then just covering up that front section with that cheese wedge piece to get that front sloping detail. I think it works really well. Got magic wand pieces here used for the side cannons, and then just a simple representation for the back hatch, and the stud on top represents the top gunner's station where there would be a second mounted cannon, which is not obviously represented here, but that stud represents the area where a soldier would pop out to do kind of anti-personnel fire for defense purposes. So yeah, I think this one works out pretty well. I like the fact that I was able to use the trans clear pieces underneath there to give it the look of the hollowed out underneath section for the tank to be hovering around on. And overall, I just think it represents the vehicle that it's meant to fairly well, fairly iconic at this scale. I think you do see what it is, especially when you're putting it in a Clone Wars scene with all the rest of the ships, which I'll of course be showing at the end of the video when I put all of these guys back in their natural habitat. So there is the clone, or I guess the Republic attack tank is what they call it, I think, in LEGO sets, but it's the TX-130 saber tank. So there you go. And next up we have 4 pod racers to add to my lineup, where previously I just had Anakin and Sebulba's pod racers. I've really wanted to finish out the entire Bunta Eve classic lineup, so I started with these 4, which are some of my favorite ones from the race. The names of these guys are, so this one is Tinto Pagaliz, this is Odie Mandrell, Ben Quadraneros, and Gasgano. Gasgano, interestingly enough, got an actual official set, I think maybe twice, but definitely in the original lineup of pod racer sets from 1999 we did get a large-scale version of his, or minifig scale version of his pod, which I thought was really cool. I like these because they have such interesting designs, like the the 4 engines here of Ben Quadraneros. Obviously, quad is in the name, so he's got the 4 engines. And figuring out ways to represent all their different cockpits and engines at this scale is really hard. So I've got the minifig hand, the roller skate piece, this sideways mounted Technic half bushing for the circular cockpit here for which one is that? Team Toe. Yeah, it's just fun. And Gasgano's big kind of vertically mounted green engines here. That was a really fun challenge to figure out. So yeah, I think each of these looks pretty comparable to their on-screen appearance, and like I said, especially at this scale, the challenge of figuring all that stuff out is so fun. And I put Quadranero's kind of actual pod on the ground here because in the movie he never actually takes off. His pod loses power at the starting line, and then his the cockpit section there just kind of floats down until he's basically on the ground, and it's very embarrassing for him. So that's that. But yeah, I do eventually want to do, like I said, the entire lineup of the Bunta Eve classic from the Phantom Menace, the classic scene that introduced us to pod racing. And I don't care what anyone says, that scene was really good. The visuals, the pacing, the way that the race was done was fantastic. So one definite bright spot in a movie that I think people have kind of reevaluated over the years, but I think still is considered to be one of the weaker entries in the saga. But I absolutely love the pod race. No questions asked. That's a really cool thing. So here's 4 more pods to add to the lineup, and hopefully, I think there's like 10 or 12 more to go. And some of them do look fairly similar, so hopefully I'll be able to crank those out before too long. And next up we have the Moldy Crow, which is from the Dark Forces series of video games, flown by Kyle Katarn. I don't think I ever played the original Dark Forces game when it first came out. I want to say I played some of the sequel games. I really have to go back and revisit this era, but I've been familiar with this ship for a long time, especially from just the love that fans have for it in the community and the faithful recreations that I often see in LEGO and in other mediums. It's a really cool, weird, bizarre looking ship. I love the way that it has this kind of this canopy or window design where it kind of comes down and forward, and like, I don't know, it's just very bizarre looking. And the shape of the front here with the kind of crow's beak, I guess, and the color scheme with the dark tan and the red just really pops. These aren't supposed to be engines right here, they're just sort of these little rounded details that pop out of the side of the ship, but I just wanted to represent those as best as I could. And then we have the the fins here coming off at different angles, which themselves have engines on them. And again, at this tiny scale, this is only 5 studs long, and such a challenge to represent this, these tiny ships. It has the underside turret here, which should actually be 2 guns, but the minifig hand is the best that I can do to represent that at this scale. And yeah, I think it just works pretty well. But yeah, I definitely have wanted to, this has been on my list for a long time to add because it's just such a unique looking ship. And I know that the love is strong in the community still for Kyle Katarn and his adventures. So I'll try to definitely dig into more of the Dark Forces lore, of which, is now Legends, and see if there's any other cool stuff to pull out there. But yeah, I'm just really happy to have this particular ship in the fleet because it is very cool. And I know that there are other prominent ships from the Dark Forces series that people do love, so I will be bringing some of those to the fleet at some point as well. But hopefully this is a good start because I think it's definitely the most iconic of that era. It's really stood the test of time. So, but yeah, I mean, there you go. It's very simple. It's very tiny. Not a whole lot going on technique-wise, but very unique. So there you go. There's the Moldy Crow. Now here's a really interesting one that I think a lot of fans are probably not familiar with, but which I think is a shame because this is a great looking little ship. This is the Windfall from the Vader Immortal VR series. This is the ship that is flown by the protagonists, and it's only seen kind of briefly towards the beginning of the campaign, I believe, and then I guess at the end again. It's been a while since I did a watch through of that. I actually never had a chance to play the VR game because I don't have any VR apparatus that I can do so on. But I did watch a playthrough of it because I love Star Wars lore and storytelling, so I wanted to know what happens in the game. and it's very cool. The story is actually really awesome, so I highly recommend checking that out. You can just go on YouTube and see a playthrough. It's really fun. I actually had to reach out to the designer of this ship personally and ask them about the length of the ship, which was really cool. They actually did get back to me, and I really sincerely appreciated that. So I was able to get an accurate reading of the scale of this, so this is accurate to the rest of my fleet. I believe it was 28.5 meters long, which translates here to whatever the amount of studs that you see on screen here is. I think it's like 8 or 9, I forget. Anyhow, it is accurate in scale, so I like that. But it's got all these really complex angles like underneath here where all these different sections meet up and have different weird angles that go off, and then figuring out a way to integrate the landing gear in here. It's a very smooth underside build, and the landing gear is built upside down. Very, very challenging stuff. The cockpit here is really fun because it's kind of 2 offset cockpits, one that protrudes out further than the other, so I think that's a really cool, unique design. We don't see a lot of that in Star Wars. It's got the, of course, classic Millennium Falcon style radar dish, and when this is in flight mode, the wings go like so, and then when it comes in for landing, they fold up into that upward position. So I really like that. It has the kind of fixed angle for the 2 wings that kind of come down this way, and then the whole thing just kind of hinges like that into landing mode, and I think that works really well. I really like the color scheme of the sort of sand blue, and it's a kind of a lighter red than this. It's almost like a salmon color, I guess. This is the closest I could get with Lego pieces to represent that. But I think the dark red works pretty well, and it's just a really cool, interesting looking little freighter. I've never seen anything quite like it, and definitely as soon as I saw this in the game, in my video of the game, I was really impressed with the design of it, and I wanted to build it in Lego as soon as I could. That was like a year ago, so I'm glad I finally got around to doing it, because it's been on my list. So yeah, this is the Windfall. Vader Immortal is a very, very cool story. It's got a lot of like interesting Star Wars lore that most fans don't know about, that kind of concerns Vader, his castle, and the whole backstory of all of that. So very, very cool stuff. So do check it out. All right, this ship holds a very special place in my heart. I guess that's kind of the ongoing theme of this episode, is ships that are something I've wanted to do for a long time, and finally I'm getting around to doing. That means a lot to me. So this is The Last Resort, which in my opinion comes from the very best comic story series ever done in Star Wars. This is from the Knights of the Old Republic series, which chronicled the adventures and misadventures of Padawan Zane Carrick, which a lot of that story I think has been kind of repurposed and taken and adapted into the story that we saw in Jedi Fallen Order. It centers around a Padawan on the run, making kind of a found family of different weirdos and outcasts on the way, and trying to stay out of the reach of the very skilled hunters that are on their tail. So I think I always felt like if they were ever going to do a live-action Star Wars TV series, that it should have focused on adapting this story, because it is just so compelling and cinematic and fun and just pure Star Wars. So very glad to be able to bring you The Last Resort, which is the main kind of Millennium Falcon for that series. It's a really, really interesting looking ship, and because it's from comics, it kind of looks a little different every time it's drawn. It's sort of a little bit wonky sometimes, and you can't really tell exactly what you're looking at. So what I've tried to do is adapt using mainly other people's fan art of the ship that kind of takes into account all the different appearances that it has, and sort of unifies it into one to try to capture the kind of definitive version of the ship here. It almost has a sort of Futurama ship look to it a little bit, right? Like the prominent nose section there, and then the tucked underside here, and the big engines in the back. Kind of reminds me of that, but obviously it's very unique. These are supposed to be sort of Millennium Falcon-esque vents, I believe, back here. These represent sort of large windows off to the side. There's this fun protruding engine detail on the side here, and then these really weird, interesting looking engines that glow up all blue when they're in use, and then there's just a massive kick of energy that gets thrown out the back side of the ship here when it's in flight. So really cool, interesting, unique design. I just realized I don't have the tan ingot piece that I'm supposed to on this side, so please pretend that there is a tan ingot piece on this side, which I will promptly go and find and place on there after I'm done shooting this. But yeah, it's just a really, really fun, interesting, unique ship. So I definitely highly encourage, if anybody is a Star Wars fan that doesn't really know anything about the kind of previous Legends lore, I suggest you track down and consume all of the issues of the Knights of the Old Republic storyline, because it is really wonderful and it deserves to be seen, I think, by today's audiences. So, but yeah, this is The Last Resort. Really, really fun, really great. So happy to have it, and also to be able to finally expand out a little bit of my Old Republic section of the fleet, because that's been lacking for a little while. So really glad to get some more representation in there. Okay, and last but not least, we have the big boy of this episode. This is the Rogue Shadow, I guess version 1 from the Force Unleashed video game series. Here, this is Starkiller, the Secret Apprentice's ship. It's supposed to be entirely unique, completely state-of-the-art and undetectable, and all of the things that a secret apprentice that no one ever heard about would need in a ship. It's incredibly cool and weird looking. It's got all these bizarre angles, and it's completely like out of balance, which of course is a nod to the character and where he's at in his journey. So I have the wings here that fold. I'll show you all that in a second. But yeah, all the different features and things that I would want to see on this ship, I've tried to represent in this teeny tiny model here. So we have the kind of accurate array of weapons and sensors and things up here at the front with the 2 cannons, this larger cylindrical hollow shape, and then these little kind of spike elements that come off of the side. We've got the one side of the fuselage here is thicker than the other. That's again a part of the design. We have these movable maneuvering flaps here, so those can be, or I guess brake flaps, they can be placed either up or down. And then, like I said, the large rotating wing sections here, which it was really tricky to figure out the exact right way to get the friction in here necessary to hold these wings up at the angle that I want them to, because obviously there's so much weight up at the front here. But I did obviously figure out a way, so that's really cool. And then I have these kind of unique engine struts here that connect all of this together, and it's again a lot of tricky engineering that went into this, so very fun stuff. So this whole section here, it sort of rotates to expose the main engine of the ship, so it needs to fold up here for landing, because otherwise it's just too large. And then when it comes down, it exposes a laser cannon which faces forward, so you can see that up here, a dual laser cannon. And then in the back here you can see this large engine which gets kind of exposed, so for takeoff that would be facing down, and then when it's in flight mode it goes into this configuration right here. I tried to detail up the back side here as best as I could. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to decipher all the teeny tiny little panels and details and things, but I just tried to give it some variation and some texture back here. And then we have this nice kind of central pod which leads up to the cockpit. So there's only a kind of a exposed top half of the cockpit right there, and then the front kind of goes down into this cool slope detail that goes right down in between. I do have a representation here for the boarding ramp, so it is a very large boarding ramp on this one, so you have to just pull that down, and then you can see there characters are able to board on the boarding ramp. And then I also have the landing gear represented here. It has four landing gear which are fixed in place on my model right here, and so that allows the ship to come in for a landing. They're very simple. It's got a jumper plate with a ratcheting hinge piece here representing the kind of interesting 3-toed foot that the landing gear struts have. And then yeah, I tried to also be as faithful as I could with the color scheme, the shaping. There's very, very subtle angles on this, like you can see down here at the sides, kind of sloping out at a very gentle angle, which is a slightly different angle on this side. It's just a very, very complicated design, and almost a mess, I would say, but somehow it comes together and it kind of works in a very pleasing way. So yeah, just really, really excited to have this one as part of the fleet. I really like the presence of the dark blue, and then the dark bluish gray and the black. It all kind of melds together in a very cool, interesting way, especially for, compared to other ships that I have in the fleet. It kind of brings a lot of interesting, unique color to that section of where it sits. At least, its place in the timeline kind of adds a cool flavor to that part of the fleet. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to have this one. The yellow behind the cockpit is intentional. that's just part of the design. It kind of always seems to be glowing yellow from inside of there, so I wanted to definitely call that out and have that in there. This ship is so huge it almost feels Old Republic, because they have those super bulky, oversized cruisers back then that everybody just had as their personal ships, I guess. Maybe there was more space in the galaxy back then. But Starkiller has this absolutely cavernous training area and other kind of luxuries inside of the ship that necessitate all of this space. So yeah, definitely really a cool ship. And there's been a few weird issues with the scaling of it over the years, like questions as to exactly how big it is, because in the game itself it varies. Like there's one part of this where you can actually jump up on top of the ship and walk around on the top of it, and it makes it seem like it's no bigger than like an X-Wing, which is very bizarre. But this thing is absolutely gargantuan. It's like 5 stories tall, and it's like 3 Millennium Falcons long or something like that, or maybe 2.5, I don't know. It's huge. So yeah, I went with what seemed like the most common scale estimate for it, and I think it works really well. So yeah, there is the Rogue Shadow. I am planning to do the Rogue Shadow 2, so in the sequel game, Force Unleashed 2, this ship gets retrofitted and made to look quite different indeed, but it still has the same kind of overall silhouette, and I think it would be fun to have that in next to this one with the fleet. So I didn't do that with some of my other ships that had similar retrofit type things in the past, because I just didn't feel like it was necessarily worth it. But for this one, I think it's different enough that it's worth doing. So yeah, look for that one in the near-ish future, or maybe I'll just wait another year and be like, oh yeah, I was supposed to get around to doing that. Sometimes I do that. My apologies. But yeah, here's the Rogue Shadow version 1. I really like it. I think I like having these back fins open because it just makes it look more sort of aggressive and more spiky and more spiny and unfriendly. And I think this is a really fun ship. So yay, welcome to the fleet, Starkiller. So there you go. There is the complete collection of new and updated craft that are going onto the Microfleet table, or tables, I guess. I haven't had this many new ships to talk about for a while, and I'm really excited. I think the Microfleet has been sort of laboring under the weight of my indecision of what to work on and where to put my focus and all the different projects that I have ongoing at different times. But I definitely wanted to sit down and give it some focus this month, because it deserves it. It's my kind of flagship fleet series, my longest ongoing series of videos, and it's probably the coolest project in LEGO that I've ever done, on account of just how much variety and craziness there is in this collection. So yeah, I definitely thought it was time to give it some love and attention. So let me know what you guys think of all of the new ships. I think these are working out really, really nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and put them on the table, and we can take a look at the fleet as it now stands with all of these new ships introduced. Alright you guys, so recently I dusted and removed every single one of these ships, and also cleaned the back tables and everything, which was a gargantuan task. It took me almost an entire day to do, but it was worth it because the fleet was getting a little bit crusty, a little bit dusty, and it was no good. So here is my sequel era section. Here I have the new A-Wing in place. Very happy to see that. And then moving down here we see Mando's N1 right there next to the Razor Crest, where it belongs. And then if we move back down here this way, we can see Luke's land speeder. There that is. And then we have the Moldy Crow and the Rogue Shadow next to one another. They kind of fit into this awkward sort of pre A New Hope area, so that's where I've placed them. And you can see down in there the Blue Leader X-Wing amongst the rest of its Rogue One brethren. And moving on down, we see the new Andor representation here, and then the retrofitted Bad Batch shuttle. And then again, I wasn't sure exactly where this story takes place, so I just sort of temporarily put it in the sort of post Episode 3 era now for the Windfall. So there that is. And then moving on down, you can see I've kind of rearranged the position of everything, not for any particular reason, just to vary things up. And then we have the clone, the saber tank in there, alongside all of its Republic Clone Wars brethren, and then we got the pod racers in there. So I'm really excited to get the full lineup of those. That's going to be really fun. And then finally moving down into the Old Republic era, There we go for the last resort. Hanging out down in there 5,000 years ago or something like that, according to the timeline. So yeah, the fleet continues to balloon, continues to grow. If you guys missed the last episode, check that out. And it'll continue to expand forever, because like I said, there's never enough. There's always more Star Wars ships. There's always more cool designs, more deep cut things, more interesting. Somebody somewhere came up with an interesting Star Wars ship, and I'm gonna make it. So that's that's where we're at. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the new additions. Let me know what you think of the fleet as a whole. Let me know how you think it's all going, and what would you like to see next. I definitely have an ongoing list that I keep of all of the ships that I haven't done yet that I want to do, and that list is ever expanding. Some of them are more realistic than others. I think I know what my next larger scale project is going to be for the fleet, but I keep that under wraps for now. But I want to be definitely building a lot more small scale ships in the meantime. I don't want to get lost in just the big stuff, and I still have to do my retrofit of the Nebulon B. Man, that has just been killing me, but that's waiting to be done. But I promise you guys, it's because I have so many things that I'm trying to bring you, and I'm trying to do it as fast as I possibly can. Alright guys, I'm gonna go and start working and start doing some stuff for the next video that I have to bring to you guys. So I really appreciate you hanging in there with me and going on this fleet journey. I forget what episode this is now, but we're up to a lot. It's been a lot. So thanks so much for the support, and hopefully you guys enjoy taking a look at the fleet every time I trot the fleet out to be shown. And it's fun to see all the new additions that keep piling on. So at least I think it is. Alright guys, so I'm going to get to work on the next one. Like I said, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you.